Good afternoon, and welcome to another edition of On Point for today, the 10th day of November 2023. And indeed, at this time of the day, 1 p.m. in the afternoon, I come here to have this program that has grown over the months. And it seems as though when I don't come, persons miss my presence. So I want to apologize for not being here last week, Friday. There were pressing matters, and of course, when that happens, then I have to attend to those. So as is done with other programs, perhaps I'll have to get a sidekick, so to speak, to come here and fill in for me when I'm gone. But once I'm not here, I generally would have a program rebroadcast, which is what was done last week. And we'll see going forward how much we can minimize my absence. But if things happen, of course, you just have to go with the flow from time to time. But it's always good to be here, and it's good to be here once again on this very beautiful Friday afternoon. And indeed, my name is Alexis Jeffers, and of course, when I start the program, I normally would shout up persons throughout the region and further afield. So I want to say good afternoon to all who are listening here on the island of Nevis, especially those who are listening up in the St. James area, because most of my followers from there, quite a number of them follow, and when I don't come, they call me on the phone and ask what is wrong with me. So I thank you for showing your concern and showing your support. But all is well. It's just that I just couldn't be here. I want to shout up all of our listeners down there in St. Kitts as well. And I say that because Von Radio is listened not only here in the Federation, but further afield as well. Statia, Saba, French and Dutch St. Martin, the U.S. and British Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, even Santo Domingo. Habla Espanol en Santo Domingo, but habla English as well. So they listen to us there. We have citizens who are back home in Santo Domingo who listen, I'm sure. And of course, up in the United States, the East Coast, the West Coast, South Florida, a place that I'm familiar with as well. I know there are quite a number of people listening there. And I know persons have gone to universities up there in North Dakota. Coldest place, well, almost, I don't know. But I understand it's very cold in North Dakota. And we have persons who have gone there to study and are there as well too. And of course in Canada, stretching from the East Coast all the way over to the West, going through places like Saskatchewan and those places. I know some places on the map, of course. And indeed up in Europe, of course, our largest following of would be there in England, in the UK. And it's afternoon now. Most persons are having a cup of tea or maybe some coffee or something of that sort with some biscuit. That is the traditional British way. And of course in Germany, all of Europe, Asia as well, we do have some citizens and students there. And I want to welcome everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever the case might be. I spent some time doing that because we're very happy and privileged to have you in our company. And it is worth the while acknowledging persons who follow not only my program, all of the other programming here on Von Radio and this station on a whole, because what persons get out of Von Radio and out of Nevis is the very best. And I say that with no fear of contradiction, because it is the Caribbean's only powerhouse. That is Von Radio, that is. And what we do here is of such quality and such quality and clarity that persons understand that when anything emanates from the microphones of Von Radio, it is quality, the best thing that you can get, and it's always the truth. And so I welcome you. I start on a somber note this afternoon, and what I mean by that, I want to express sympathies to the Jeffers family over there. Well, not only the Jeffers family, but the Burke and Bosu family over there in Butlers. Earlier this week, we would have lost a young man, very young, tender age, I believe of about 34 thereabout, Mr. Clive Jr. Jeffers. We call him Twice. Many of you would know him. He was one of those fun-loving guys and was a barbecue specialist as well. Very hard worker, because he, up until his passing, he would have worked with Surrey Paving and Aggregate, both here in Nevis, on St. Kitts, and he may have gone further afield because Surrey Paving, of course, normally would be contracted to do work in other neighboring islands as well, so he may have gone further afield, but he would have worked with Surrey Paving, I believe, ever since he started working, so it means that he would have had quite a number of years with that company. And indeed, he was one of those engineers, one of those workers, specialists, whatever you want to deem him to be or call him to be, on the road projects that were done here in the Federation. And indeed, the efforts, or his efforts, will sorely be missed because whatever role he played, it brought about the conclusion or completion of some of these projects. Indeed, the family over there in Butlers and the whole Butlers community was in shock when we heard of his passing. He had some illness for a short period of time, and I want to say how terrible of news this is, but when it's all said and done, it shows the fragility of life, because one day you're here, next day you're gone. 1 week you're here, next week you're gone. And someone reminded me and said, this minute you're here, this minute you're gone. And that is how fragile this life is. And I know it cannot be easy for the entire family over there. I want to recognize the father. We call him T.D. and the mom, Cindy. And I want to express sympathy as well to his siblings, who, of course, are all grieving at this time. And this one is one that I will say is a tough one to embrace, because it was not expected, but it has happened. And indeed, only the Lord knows best in circumstances like these, and we put all our trust and faith in God, knowing that all will be well in the end. So it's difficult, yes, a situation to deal with, but it is one that we have been dealing with from time to time and over again here on the island of Nevis, and of course other places as well. But I'm speaking of Nevis, and over the last couple of months, or since the year has started, we've been having persons who have been departing this life, and we know that no one knows when our time will come. So all of us who have not had these type of experiences would want to ensure that we are lending support to those who are having these difficult and challenging times, so that if and when the time comes our way, we certainly can have that reciprocated to us, whereby we can have the support of the general public as well. So we'll listen up for the funeral services in the future, and indeed all of us who can should go out and lend our support. And if you can just utter a kind word and a comforting word to the entire family, that would be good as well. So let me move on. Well, in times of death, there's also a time when persons are born and persons are celebrating. We can move from that to this, yes, because you always want to have a balance in your mindset. So those who are celebrating today, I want to express birthday greetings to you. I don't have anyone on my list, but those who are celebrating, from myself to you, have an absolutely wonderful day. And you hear me talk about the passing of someone just now? Enjoy it as if it's your last. I know it probably won't be in some cases, it could be, only God knows. But whatever the situation is, enjoy it as if it's your last, because birthdays are meant to be celebrated. And even more so these days when things are just happening to all of us, just go ahead and celebrate. So have a wonderful time throughout today, tomorrow, and the end of this month. November is one of those beautiful months. We always hear that persons born in November were conceived on a Valentine's night. So maybe I am one of those, because later this month I'll be celebrating a birthday as well. So my mom and dad maybe had a wonderful Valentine's evening, whatever it is, we can make light of it, but it's just the reality. Things happen, yeah? So enjoy the rest of the month if you're celebrating this month, and those who are yet to celebrate, happy birthday when it comes. I just want to put in another plug here at this point in time as well for this event that is coming up on the 25th of November, and that is the 3rd annual Pork and Beer Festival over there at Whitehall. That's up there at the playfield on the outskirts of Brickhill. When we say Whitehall, Whitehall is in Brickhill. Brickhill is stretching from all the way down by the Anglican Church, going all the way up towards Madden's. Anyway, on the hard court there at Whitehall, this is the 3rd annual Pork and Beer Festival. It's put on by the Link Promotion and all those who are part of that particular group, you know who you are. I mentioned those names last time I was here, but I'm giving them a plug again because this event last time around was a huge event, and it is anticipated that it will be even bigger this year. What it is that a lot of emphasis is placed on dishes made out of pork meat, whether it's stew pork, barbecue pork, grilled pork, or whatever it is, or diced pork, or shredded pork. I don't know. I'm just saying, but all of these things I'm sure would be available. But any dish that is made using the pork meat will be prepared over there. And then, of course, there'll be some specials on beer as well. So the musical entertainment, I see DJ Wet Dot. I see also the Odyssey Band, Grandmasters Band, also Speedy, Selector Bobby, and DJ Toby. Those of you who go to these events would know who these persons are. I know Grandmasters, I know Odyssey Band, I know DJ Wet Dot, I know Speedy, but Selector Bobby, I'm sorry, I'm not too sure. And DJ Toby, I don't know if they're Nivisions or Kidditions, but anyway, to make this lineup, it means that you're good. That's all I'll say. You're very good. So that is a packed lineup of artists and performers that will be over there. So that takes care of that. Before I go any further, I also want to remind the people of St. Kitts and Nevis that we are still in the hurricane season. And, you know, there's tranquil weather outside now. A few weeks ago, we were dealing with the onset of Hurricane Tammy. That didn't come our way. We got some showers, we got some wind, we got some flooding conditions, yes. But of course, the weather is nice outside, lush, and the sun is not too hot today. Typical Nevis weather around this time of the year. And those of you who are familiar with the weather here on Nevis, this is the type of weather that we love. You can go outside and enjoy a nice breeze and also the ambience and the environment, because it's very lovely outside. Very nice to be in Nevis at this time. However, I would want to say that I was looking at the weather situation recently, or what the weather condition is like around us, whether in the Caribbean Sea or in the Atlantic Ocean. I am seeing that there are some flare-up of some weather systems there in the Caribbean Sea, and some pundits are saying that, and they are reminding us of Hurricane Lenny, which came our way back in 1999, I believe, and that was one of those storms. We call it a backdoor storm, quote unquote. And what it meant is that instead of Hurricane Lenny coming out of the Atlantic Ocean, across the Atlantic Ocean, it came across the Caribbean Sea and out of the Caribbean Sea and onto our shores. They are seeing some weather system that apparently there are some fronts and different weather phenomena that might very well pull it from south, meaning close to Belize and those countries, and pull it up towards Jamaica and perhaps towards Puerto Rico. And when you start hearing about Puerto Rico, then you start to think about St. Kitts Nevis as well. Well, we're hoping that will not be the case. We cannot deal with anything of that sort at this point in time. So we are asking the Lord's protection on us further until the end of this season and even beyond, because these phenomena, wherever they come from, whatever magnitude they are, can create significant damage and significant difficulties for us. So we are praying for the best in that regard. But it is worth keeping an eye on, because I believe Lenny came as a late storm in 1999, that is. And indeed, we just cannot lay our guards down. So continue to be vigilant, continue to look to the east, but also look to the west, because we can get anything at this time. And that was just a few words of admonition to all of us to be vigilant as we go forward. So, on to something else. Of course, when I come here at the end of each month, I normally present some data as to what is happening over there at the Uwale Water Taxi Facility. I do so because it is one of those investments that was made by the Concerned Citizens Movement, now in government, in ensuring that access to St. Kitts is still there for us. We know we can travel out of Charlestown, we can travel out of the Seabridge area there at Kisbe. But for those who were using the water taxi facility out of Wally, which would have gotten into a state of disrepair, the concerned citizens movement saw an opportunity to provide an upgraded facility for the people of Nevis to use. Not only the people of Nevis, but also visitors to the island of Nevis or to the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. That being said, I can say that the project is not completed at this point in time. It is still ongoing, and some may ask, well, why is it taking so long? I will say to you that first and foremost, our main aim was to get this project up and going in terms of the pier being constructed and boats are able to traverse the waters between St. Kitts and Nevis. That is ongoing. Indeed, ongoing as well is the reconstruction of the facility there. Their building that is on the premises, it is being upgraded to provide the departure area and also for administrative purposes. So some tiling work is being done and other work being done on the interior. So sometimes you pass there, you don't see any one persons are inside doing what they have to do. Indeed, when we had the onset of COVID-19, whatever monies were allocated to that project, I will say that those monies were used elsewhere to save lives or to make sure that we can have something to eat as a people. And so in government, there's always what you call repurposing of funds. And if, for example, you have $100 earmarked for something tomorrow, and you see where $50 of that 100 can be used for something more meaningful, at that point in time, that is what you'll have to do as a government. So decisions are made all the time that are in the best interest of the island of Nevis. But in saying all that, I'll say to the people of Nevis that the work is ongoing and would come to a conclusion shortly. And indeed, there will be more things to be done on that, at that facility, I should say. There are 3 different units that need to be constructed for purposes of selling things like ice cream, sandwiches, drinks, and the likes. So that is another phase of the project that will come in time. And so, as I was saying earlier, that when I come here at the end of each month, I normally would give some update as to what we're doing in terms of the movement of persons out and persons in. So that is persons embarking on those water taxis to go and persons disembarking coming from Reggae Beach. So last month, at the end of September, we had a total of 182,511 persons would have used the facility either to go to St. Kitts or to come back over or come to Nevis. So that's 182,511 persons. Now, during the month of October, we had some movements over there. So persons leaving Wally, heading to Reggae Beach, 7,936 persons. Persons coming from Reggae Beach to Wally, 7,462 persons, for a grand total of 15,398 persons. So you add that to the 182,511 persons, you get a grand total thus far at the end of October, using the facility both in and out of Wally water taxi facility, 197,909 persons. So that's 197,909 persons. That is a phenomenal figure, tremendous numbers. And as I have said before, this is one of those revenue generating projects. It's not just a project like a road project that you build and then persons will eventually pay their wheel tax at the end of each year and nothing else thereafter, unless you have an accident or you have some mishap or something goes wrong. But you can spend money throughout if you have bad roads and you have to buy shocks and suspension and all that kind of thing, and fuel and the likes. But this particular project is one that you consider to be a revenue generating project where every day money is being made by the boat operators, by NASPAR, by those who are employed there. They get their weekly wage, their bi-weekly wage, or maybe monthly salaries. Then, of course, Social Security deductions are paid. Of course, boats have to pay what you call berthing fees. And indeed, those boat owners have to buy parts and other items that are needed for their boats. They have to buy drinks and water and all of the amenities that goes along with their services. So indeed, it is a project that we have seen millions of dollars have been generated over there in a short period of time. For this year alone, and all I can say, if you take 10% from that 197,909 persons, just take 10% off. You say those went for free. And then you multiply the remaining amount by at least $30. I don't know what they charge, $30, $40 one way? I don't know. Whatever they charge over there. You just multiply it and you see what has been generated for all of the boat owners and operators out there thus far. NASPA will get their $5 per person who are leaving, and of course you can do the math. So millions of dollars have been generated. So when all a water taxi facility is being knocked day in and day out by those on the other side who don't understand what investments and development is all about, sometimes you just have to say, listen, it is a good investment for and on behalf of the people of Nevis. And indeed, if it was owned by an outsider, for example, someone who came here, built it, perhaps the other side would have loved to see those monies being made and repatriated. But all of these monies are staying here because these are local boat operators. And to be more specific, they are Nevisians who are operating these boats. Nevisians are employed, and the money is staying in Nevis and circulating in Nevis. Well, I think it gets some too, because when there are events in St. Kitts, we go down in our numbers to support. When there are events in Nevis, they come up in their numbers to support as well. So I just want to say that, you know, it is one that is beneficial to both islands, and it has certainly made the access to both islands much easier. I call this the water taxi bridge. You have the sea bridge, you have the water taxi bridge, which gets you there much quicker than any other service that is available to us here in the Federation at this point in time. So if I were to make one last point quickly, and that is to say that last year, October 2022, there was 14,239 persons who used the facility. So we would have jumped up by 1,159 persons this year. So the numbers keep growing, and they'll keep growing because the service is known now. It's known to everyone. And those who have never used it before will someday use it, and those numbers will continue to grow. And I want persons to continue to support that facility. I want the boat operators to continue to ply your trade in a safe way so that we can, you know, protect lives in between St. Kitts and Nevis, and there are no disasters. And I want those who use it to exercise extreme care and caution as well. So that is the Oale Water Taxi facility. If I sound like I'm always gleeful about it, it is because I knew from day one that it will have the kind of impact that it is having today. And that is why when the opportunity came to purchase that property, we purchased it at a cost of what, 1.2 or 1.3 million US dollars, and also constructed the pier at about 590,000 US dollars, I believe, up to the point when the construction and fencing and toilet facilities were constructed. We would have spent just about 5.6 million EC dollars on that facility, and plus the additional monies that are being spent now to finish or renovate the building that is there. So we would have done an excellent job in ensuring that we maintain the cost, or operate within the costs that we would have said initially of $6 million at that first stage or first phase. We also are pleased that we would have procured the lands opposite, about 9.04 acres of lands, for 1.9 million EC dollars, Eastern Caribbean dollars. And I believe that price, you cannot find that anywhere else in Nevis for such prime property. It was at $4.75 thereabout per square foot. So I want to, I believe I can say thank the Yarwoods, because we would have approached them and we would have said, give back the people of Nevis something. Give us back something. Because, you know, lands in Jones Estate go for almost $90 a square foot. If I can give a guess. I believe it is that in that region, because that's a built-up area, all infrastructure's in, and we were able to get a marvelous price, a wonderful price. So I want to thank the Howards for acceding to the request of the Nevis Island Administration, and for that we're able to provide the additional parking for people over there. And I want to say that is indeed giving back. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, let me get on to something quickly, because over the last couple of days we've been hearing a lot of noise in Nevis about this amendment to the international, what am I saying, the amendments to the Integrity in Public Life Amendment Bill 2023 that was read for the first time in the Assembly there on Monday. We've been hearing a lot of noise about the Premier of Nevis not wanting to include the opposition, the Premier of Nevis. All sorts of things are being said about the Premier of Nevis and the concerned citizens movement in government. And indeed, you know, I'm reminded of this saying from one Walter Scott. I think that's his name, Walter Scott. He would have penned this proverb, this saying, oh, what a tangle web we weave, when at first we practice to deceive. And you know, the NRP went around with this thing saying how, oh, we're stopping, we're trampling on democracy, we're stopping freedom of speech, we're doing all kind of things that they consider to be inconsistent with what is considered to be good governance. And I say it is nothing of that sort. But then again, when you want to tell lies, I tell you what lies do, you know. There are consequences to lies. There are consequences in that you harm the members of the community. You also harm yourself, because when it is proven that you're telling a lie and you're deceiving people, it comes back to you. But if your shame back smash up, well, I don't think you'll be ashamed of anything that you do. But I want the people of Nevis, and the reason why they're behaving the way they do and spreading all of these lies and trying to concoct stories and get a narrative out there that is opposite to what the realities are, is because they know in most cases persons won't ask for the amendments. They won't ask for the amendments to read it, so they put out this narrative, and the people of Nevis who would want to be suckered into that would do so. But when it's all said and done, when the truth is known, then of course it's a different story. And they don't come back to apologize, you know, because they don't care. They're reckless in their approach to getting information out. And you know, I'm reminded of this this party in the United States, the Republican Party. And I recall that this station reminds me of the NRP station too, Fox. Fox News is one that gives you all kind of embellishing news, all kind of lies, all kind of stories. They were caught the other day, you know, about these voting machines that were used. I think they're produced by some company called Dominion something. I don't remember what it was. But when it was found out that Fox was reporting that there was something wrong with these machines when it was not true, they settled, you know, they settled for $700+ million. They know if it had gone to trial, it would have been more than that. They realized that they were lying. They realized that they were misleading the public. Sorry. And when they were brought into check, they recognized that they were misleading the people. And for that, they paid a heavy price. Fox News, that is. And that is the type of thing we have going on here in Nevis. And let me say to the people of Nevis, a lot of times when some of these people come with some of these information and you jump onto the thread and you start to big them up, I want to remind you that I've been following some information out of Jamaica, for example. They're in the middle of campaigning up there for some municipal election or some type of elections up there. And there are a couple of bloggers who have since been charged with spreading false information. And you know what? I'm going to tell you this much. The persons who are bigging them up and pushing them to say this and say that, from what I read and from what I understand, none of those persons have 5 cents to give to the culprit or the person who have been charged. So there are persons up there who have been charged who are balling left, right, and center now, don't have any money. But even if you don't have any money, if a judgment is had against you, the day of recompense is still going to come, you know. You're either going to pay one way or pay the next. You might pay at 1842. No, not at 1842, but you might pay at 1842. And that is the problem we have here in this island, that people out there are spreading all kind of things or making up all kind of stories. Say they are reporters and reporting what is false just to create anxiety in the community, just to create a narrative and just to make somebody look bad. But I'm going to tell them, continue. You're on the right road. And I say you're on the right road to destruction. Continue. But let me get back to this bill that I'm talking about, the Integrity in Public Life Amendment Bill 2023. Now, there are 7 amendments that are proposed in this bill. And let me say, the order paper that I saw and the order paper that was referred to here on Von Radio in the news, it was meant, or what was meant to happen on Monday happened, in that the first reading was done. And here's the thing about the first reading of a bill. There's no debate, none whatsoever. The first reading is done to put the bill on the table so that at least public opinions can be had, persons can get access to the bill, read it, and then, you know, if you have comments, you make those comments. The second reading of the bill, then you have a debate. Then the third reading, after the third reading, or the third reading is done upon the passage of the bill, or the third reading, then the passage of the bill, or it's adopted into law. But it is that step, first, second, and third. And then, of course, upon the second reading, then you go into committee stage where you make amendments or correction to the bill, that kind of thing. So that is what is done in the regular run of things in Parliament. But that being said, Monday was the first reading, and that was it. House was adjourned, and then they'll come back at some point soon. Now, here's what the opposition is suggesting to the government of Nevis and the Premier of Nevis, that things should be done by the government to suit them, to suit the NRP. That is what they're trying to suggest to me with all the noise that is being made. But I want to say that the Premier of Nevis, the Honourable Mark Brantley, have done some things that have never been done before under any government in Nevis. In the first place, like it or not, the Premier of Nevis, the Honourable Mark Brantley, would have made available to the opposition an office which was being paid for, or is being paid for, or was being paid for, let me say was being paid for, by the people of Nevis, of course. But prior to Mark Brantley as the Premier of Nevis, no other leader would have done so. So the leader of the opposition party had an office that was being paid for. Many would not like it, but of course, as part of the good governance agenda, that was done. I recall as well in COVID-19, or during COVID-19, the Premier of Nevis met with the Honourable Cleone Simmons and the Honourable, well, at that time she was not Honourable Janice, but Janice Daniel, and asked them for their support. Get on board with the government. Let us get the word out. Let us get our people out there to at least get vaccinated, or give them the merits of being vaccinated, so that at least by the time this episode is over, by the time COVID-19 is done, we'll be able to get back on the road to reality and progress in a short period of time. And the interesting thing, none of them, it was done in writing, black and white, that they were not interested. And these are realities. I'm not making up anything on anybody. But I'm telling you, that is what the Premier met with them, and none of them were willing to work with the administration at that time, whatever the thinking was. So the Premier has always been reaching out to the opposition. So we have this situation whereby the opposition now, there are two different parties in opposition as far as I am concerned. And that is why the NRP should stop blaming the CCM, you know, because the people of Nevis, in the context of NFL football, threw them a pass in December. And you know, you can catch that ball, run with it, or you can fumble it. The NRP, the ball was thrown at them, and they fumbled that ball immediately after the election. Poor confusion in NRP. So you have all of this confusion. You can't decide on a leader of the opposition. You can't decide who is going to get what ministries. And let me say this, you know, you see, the episode that ensued after election, it was going to get worse, you know. The candidate for Charlestown, she would have contested the elections, lost at the polls, lost in the court, not once, twice, and I believe 3 times. How many times? So many times I forget. You know why I believe that person was trying to get that seat overturned or get back to the polls? She had aspiration to be the leader as well of NRP. So you had the member for Nevis 5. She wanted to be the leader. You have the member for Nevis 4 want to be the leader. Or is the current leader. And is the leader, yes. You have the persons there for Nevis 1 who want to be the leader as well too. So you hear upon confusion in the NRP. Now what can the Premier of Nevis do to undo that confusion? What can he do? Premier of Nevis can't do a thing. If you can't decide among yourself, how do you expect the Premier of Nevis to unravel those confusion that exists among all of you there in the NRP? The Premier of Nevis was elected and the CCM was elected to government to run the affairs and govern the affairs of the people of Nevis, and also to make sure that in so doing that the mandate that was given to the Premier and his colleagues is carried out in such a way that the people of Nevis are satisfied with the governance of the concerned citizens movement and the leader of the island of Nevis. So that is the mandate. Run the affairs of Nevis. And in so doing, find the ways and legal and appropriate ways to ensure that the affairs of Nevis are being managed. So you had these amendments that were proposed simply because, 1, you have the member for Nevis 5, you have the member for Nevis 4, both on the opposition bench, but are of 2 different parties. Well, I don't want to say 2 different parties. You have the NRP and you have an independent. I don't know if that's a party at this point in time, but she's independent, member for Nevis 5. Now, here's a scenario. You're asking the Premier then to go to the member for Nevis 4. Who is your selection to get on the commission? There are 3 members that are required, the commission, to make up that commission, that is. The member for Nevis 4 will say, I want Jack. Just call in a name. Go to the member for Nevis 5 and ask, who do you want? She would say, Jill. You hear pan confusion again? Number 5 want Jill. Number 4 want Jack. So what is the Premier to do? He can't select both. So to get beyond that and to ensure that the work of the commission continues, and let me say here and now that I have no issue whatsoever with who makes up that commission, because I have nothing to hide. The Premier has nothing to hide. Nobody in the NIA should have anything to hide. Nobody in who is supposed to be filing their assets and liabilities with the commission should have anything to hide. So you now ask the Premier to select someone based on what either of those said. That's confusion. You're not going down that road. So what the Premier has done, and the Nevis Island administration, they have done some amendments, 7 amendments. And one of the amendment that was done, amendment of section 3 of that Integrity in Public Life bill, which was initially passed in 2013 but adopted in 2018. And let me, before I go on any further, I want to say that the NRP has made a lot of noise about the composition and also the legality of the commission, because they said the Honourable Joseph Parry then was not the leader of the opposition in the Nevis Island Assembly. What was being done there was to get the commission to work, but yet still the NRP argued vociferously against that. Say it was not properly constituted. So it's like they want to have the cake and eat it. They have 2 sides of their mouth that they argue out of. They argue out of one side and then they come back and argue out of the other side. But let's put it this way. This is an attempt to fix what was broken, as they say and as we recognize. So the amendment that is proposed in section 3 is as follows. And I'm going to read it out for the general public to understand. The principal ordinance is amended in section 3(2)(b)(2) by deleting subparagraph 2 in its entirety and replacing it with the following. And here's what it says. One member appointed on the recommendation of the leader of the opposition, or if there is no leader of the opposition, then a person nominated by the Premier after consultation with the members, if any, of the opposition party or parties represented in the Nevis Island Assembly. Now, I believe the Premier has, not the Premier, I don't want to say the Premier, but the Nevis Island administration managed by the concerned citizens movement is trying to fix a problem based on what currently exists in Nevis. You hear the party or parties represented in the Nevis Island Assembly? That is on the opposition. You have two parties now, or two individuals represented two different entities. Now, I gave the illustration just now that if the member for Nevis 4 said that she wants Jack, and the member for Nevis 5 says she needs Jill, then you have a problem again. Now, this is where the leader of the country comes into play, whereby, one, there are three members that are on this commission. One, the Deputy Governor General will have a selectee. She will select one. The Premier or the leader of the country will select, or the island will select one. And then it is saying here in this amendment that he will consult any party or parties on the opposite side. Now, if you had one person, they can be consulted. You have two persons or two parties, they will be consulted, but then there is where confusion will come in. So the Premier now is saying, in that case, if they can't make up their mind, then he will select the third person. What is so wrong with that? I have said before, and I believe everyone in the NIA should think the same way. Whomever is selected should be carrying out the mandate of the commission based on law. This don't have anything to do with spite. It don't have anything to do with bad mind. It don't have anything to do with a personal agenda. It has to be done in a way where their mandate is carried out based on law, what is enshrined in the Integrity Public Life Ordinance. And that is why I said I have no problem with who is going to be there. Because, listen, when I file my assets and liabilities, personally, I really don't care. I don't want it to end up on the street, and it should not end up there. But I want it to be preserved in such a way that at least those who should have sight of it must have sight. And those who are mandated to be there take that oath of secrecy. You expect that. So it really shouldn't matter to anyone. But if you're going to make noise and say, well, hey, you didn't have the right to select, or the commission was not properly constituted back in 2018, this is a way of fixing it. The NRP should have been in a position to help fix it. But because of the confusion, and I will tell you this much, give the NRP another 5 years, they'll still have confusion. You know why? All of them who have decided to get into politics haven't come into politics with the best interests of the people at heart. Because they didn't even come up with a manifesto in 2022 to say what they're going to do for the island of Nevis. All they do is criticize everything that the concerned citizens movement have done, is doing, and will continue to do. Pure confusion. The people of Nevis don't want no confusion, you know. This thing will be passed, and it's going to be passed, and then after it is passed, you won't hear a thing about it, because the commission will go to work and do what they are mandated to do. Now, some argument has been made about the period of time. The period of time that the commission should serve. And here's my argument, and all of them know that, you know, and all of them know this. Every institution, statutory body, whomever it is in this federation, whether it's National Bank, whether it's the Nevis Housing and Land Development Corporation, whether it's NEVLEC, the Cultural Foundation, Nevis Solid Waste, wherever you go, 3 years is the appointed time on those boards, meaning you get an instrument that lasts 3 years. Down there at the Bank of Nevis, all those institutions, 3 years. If there was some difficulties of the past where persons were given a 5-year mandate, this is meant to correct it. What is so wrong with that? 3 years. All of the other institutions, so why should this be different? It cannot be different if you're going to have consistency across the board. Consistency across the board. Somebody might argue and say, well, ministers should serve for 3 years too. Well, change the constitution. Change the constitution, because we have 5-year mandates in political offices. But when it comes to statutory bodies, as a matter of fact, just last Monday, I believe it was, there was a parliamentary sitting in St. Kitts, federal parliament, and the Consumer Protection Bill was passed. And a new board is to be constituted. A membership of what? 5 persons, I believe? 3 years. They'll be given instruments for a 3-year period. Now, if you want to roll those over into another 3, it's up to the minister in question if he decides to go ahead with another 3 years. So you make noise about 5 years. When every institution up and down the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis have a 3-year mandate. But you make noise about 5 years. And so you try to ask yourself the logic behind some of these arguments to create hysteria. And happy, go and sit down. That's all I'm going to tell you all, right? And I keep telling the people of Nevis, you know. I keep telling the people of Nevis, when somebody tell you who they are, you better take them at their word. But when they show you who they are, you better believe them. And the NRP with all this noise can show you who they are or tell you who they are with this noise. But when it's all said and done, the evidence that we have seen from the NRP tells us exactly who they are. They are people who you want to keep away from, because they go on further and make more noise as well regarding the declaration that you make. For example, you declare that you have $10,000 in the bank. What this legislation amendment is saying, that you don't have to provide the supporting documents. And here's the thing. Anyone who declares that they have $10,000 in the bank and it's found out otherwise, you have broken the law. That is a problem for you to face. If I have a piece of land, for example, and that COT is in my hand for the last 10 years, what the commission is saying, you don't have to present that every cycle when you're presenting your declaration. That COT, you have already done so, and I have it. If you present a bank balance, if, for example, last year it was 10,000 and this year it shows 200,000, the commission has a right to ask you. It's in here, in the amendments. The commission has a right to ask you to provide the supporting evidence to back up this anomaly. It's there. But you see, they're going to tell you these things because it sounds good. And they know that many of us, and I say many of us, will not read. We get our information from some of these people out there who are making a lot of useless noise. Nobody should make any false declaration to the commission. None. Not me, not the premier, no, nobody. But if you're called upon, that's where the rubber will hit the road, you know. If you're called upon to provide the evidence to support what you have declared, there's where the problem might arise. So it is obvious that this piece of legislation is meant to cut down on all of the paperwork and all of the things that these commissioners have to go through. But if you're called upon, you must be willing and must be able, not willing, you must be able to provide the supporting document. So whatever you declare, when you go there and you take that oath down at the court, because you have to get it sworn to in front of a notary or in front of the people down there, a commissioner, sorry, down there at the court. So once you lift your hands or hold the Bible in your hand and declare that the content of this document is true, you better be true when they ask you a question. So with all of this hysteria and all of this noise, I just don't even understand. I don't understand, and I will not really hurt my head too much about it. But one, the premier has the ability under this amendment to select someone until NRP get themselves organized, because they'll be in opposition for a long time, so they'll get themselves organized. And if it was just NRP, one person on the opposition bench, this bit of legislation gives the premier the authority to consult with that person. In this case, you have persons, and in this case, you have problems too, because none of them will come up with the same person. As with the case when they were trying to select a senator, none of them could have come up with the appropriate person. One had 5, one had 2. They scaled it down to 2 and one had 1. And it was poor confusion because they couldn't get it settled. So the government has to continue with the business at hand. The government has to continue with the operations here on the island. And the government that is mandated to do so is the Concerned Citizens Movement. And these amendments are consistent with what is necessary to fix a problem. To fix a problem not only created by the legislation itself initially, but also by the fact that the opposition is in a bunch of confusion, a state of confusion, can't get their act together. But we must hold back the business of the country, or the island, sorry, for them to get their act together. No, it can't happen. How are it going to happen? It can't happen. So this is going to proceed, and I don't know when the next sitting will be done, or will be held, but of course that will be done shortly so as to move forward. But let me just continue with what I had to impart at this time as well too, because this morning, earlier today, just about 11 o'clock today, we had the signing of the contract with our consultants who are here working with us with respect to the upgrade and expansion of the Van Samre International Airport. That is Perez Engineering and Consulting Limited. They're here and we have been working with them since 2015. And I will say here publicly that they have put in a tremendous amount of work even before this contract has been signed, because they have come and they have seen the merits of such a project. They have worked on numerous projects throughout the world. Most recent ones would have been that project down there in St. Vincent, the construction of the Argyle International Airport, and they would have constructed a control tower there in Montego Bay in Jamaica. So we have sought out the best, and I believe we have gotten the best we can get at this point in time. So their job now is to come up with the final engineering drawing and architectural drawing for the airport, and also they will oversee the construction of the airport as well. So they will be with us for the duration of the project, and indeed we are planning to have a what do you call it now? We're planning to have one of these consultancy meeting, or what do you call it? I just had a brain freeze. But anyway, we'll be consulting with the general public, and that meeting, I believe, you'll hear more about it somewhere around the first week in December. I forgot the word. And sometimes at our age, sometimes we have this brain freeze. Let me see. Well, before I'm done, I'll get the correct wording. But anyway, we'll hear more about it because we'll publicize it here on Von Radio, and we'll publicize it on Facebook and all of the different media, social media platforms. But we'll have consultation, consultation with the general public. I think that's what it is, yes. Some people will say, oh yeah, he got a radio and forget the word. That's okay. I know exactly what I want to say, and we know what will be done when the time comes. But what they'll do at that first consultation with the general public is to lay out the project in terms of what we are proposing to do up there, which is the extension of the runway both east and west, the resurfacing of the entire runway. We're going to construct additional parking apron. We will resurface the current parking apron that is there. We'll construct a hangar. We will construct a fuel farm. Also construct a brand new fire station. We know the one out there is not occupied at this time. It is not in any state for persons to live in. And of course procure the additional firefighting equipment. We'll also upgrade the control tower. Some work will be done on the terminal. With more passengers, of course, you'll need more space. And then of course we will, in anticipation of all that, have a diversion of the island main road. And I want to remind the general public that right now you're driving on a surface out there from the end or that entrance to Mount Nevis to up towards the Newcastle Airport. We didn't, well, I said Newcastle Airport, but Van Samre International Airport. We didn't resurface that area because all that will form part of airport property, and then also part of it for the diversion of roads, and as well as, roads. New fencing as well will be done over there. The entire perimeter will be fenced, and that's what we'll be doing. And you'll learn more as we go, But I thought I'll just let it be heard this afternoon because that would form part of the news item that you'll either hear on NNC, hear on Von Radio, and on NNC at some point. So that's why I'm just giving you some snippets as to what you will expect. But listen, my thing about the expansion of the Van Samre International Airport is it is so much needed at this time. This is what will take Nevis to the next level of its development. This is where we'll see larger aircraft coming to Nevis. This is where we'll have that connection of moving passengers from the U.S. mainland to the island of Nevis, because we're hoping to attract those Embraer 170, Embraer 175, and I believe the Embraer 195 as well. But of course, with some degree of limitations in some regards. Of course, all of the business jets or private jets, or those jets that, you know, the rich and famous would fly around in. And it doesn't necessarily mean the rich and famous. Maybe you and I, all of us here, can certainly jump on one of those one of these days. What you should do is do some research and see what membership you can buy to some of these entities that operate these jets. Because when they come to Nevis with 4 or 5 passengers, whatever the case, and they're headed back to JFK, or they're heading back to some Teterboro or someplace in the United States, you can get on. That is the empty leg journey that you're talking about, where you can get a cheap seat to fly out of here. So all those possibilities will exist when the time comes. What I'm more interested in, though, is moving people to Nevis, having access to the island of Nevis, growing our tourism, growing our product here. And you know, Nevis have much more to offer than many other countries out there. And that is why we'll be a sought after destination, or continue to be a sought after destination. Some might say we are a bit late. Yes, we are. But one has to understand that we have had challenges and difficulties in terms of getting to where we are. We know the last upgrade was done by the Concerned Citizens Movement back in 2003 thereabout. That is when we were upgraded to accommodate the ATR 72, I believe, out of Puerto Rico. That's the American Eagle. So we are upgraded to attract a larger aircraft, the American Eagle, this time a jet-type aircraft, which can come from the mainland to Nevis. And of course, all of the charter airlines that can come will come and bring our people directly to us. What can be more helpful to us than to have our people and our visitors being brought to us? People are not interested in going from point. They want to come to point B, but they don't want to go from point A to point C, point D, or point F to get to point B. They want to leave from point A to point B. And that is what the people of Nevis must be clamoring for at this point in time. If we are to see future development here on the island of Nevis, your infrastructure must be in place to support the agenda that you have in terms of bringing people to Nevis and making it easier for persons to access the island of Nevis. Many of the islands close to us don't have the amenities that we have to offer, but they have the infrastructure to support what they're trying to do. Now we are seeking to bring the infrastructure to support what we already have, and that is the interesting thing, and that is why I am so happy that we have reached to this point in trying to get our airport facility upgraded to meet all of the international standards, whether it's ICAO or whether it's the ECA, the Eastern Caribbean Civil Aviation Authority, or the FAA, or whomever. We will have our airport in those particular have it in the category to satisfy those particular agencies. So that being said, you'll hear a lot more about this airport upgrade in the near future, because from here on in, the conversation on a weekly or daily, weekly or monthly basis will be the Van Samre International Airport. We're serious about this. We're serious about moving forward. We're serious about the implication of what we're intending to do. And overall, we are serious about the overall development of the island of Nevis. We are coming out of COVID-19. We are bouncing back, and we are bouncing forward as well too, with this upgrade and with many more things that we'll do for the island of Nevis. Ladies and gentlemen, wow, time is up. And I am dressed already for a funeral, so I'm going to get out of here right now and go and pay my last respect to my villager there, Gwenny Stapleton. Well, Alice, not Alice. Well, Gwenny, as she's affectionately known. A lot of things are slipping me right now, but that's okay. Slipping the mind is no fault in the mind. A slip is not a fault. So let me wrap up there and say thank you for listening. We've covered some grounds over the last hour. And indeed, man, I feel so good coming to Von Radio on a Friday. But I wish it was 2 hours. But 1 hour is enough. Let's cut it there and say, have a wonderful weekend. Thank you for listening. And always remember to pick up something and read. Don't always accept what people say out there. Because if somebody is meant to deceive you, they will get you deceived. And they're so good at it that they would continue doing it if you allow them to. So put a stop to it and get yourself informed. Information is power. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Have a safe weekend, a wonderful weekend. Have a beautiful afternoon. And whatever you do, be safe. And let us continue to build the island of Nevis. Thank you. God bless us all. Have yourself a wonderful day.
The views and opinions expressed on the preceding program were solely those of the participants and do not